everyone. Thank you for being here for our discussion from our esteemed panelists on monitoring and observability on AWS. And I know as we stand here between you and cocktail hour, so I really appreciate you all being here, and I promise you it's going to be very insightful, and in my conversations I'm already excited for things we're going to learn. So thank you for being here. So when you think about monitoring and observability, everybody says, telemetry data, logs, metrics, traces, the usual stuff. But I think about the time, a little bit dating myself, but there was a time when observability was simple because you had typically one box on which you ran some sort of application server, Tomcat, WebLogic, at least that's what I did, and you deploy your applications. And then you have a redundant second box for fault tolerance or redundancy, and you're off to the races. If something didn't work, you could reboot the machine, or you knew exactly which workload was running on which box. But that sort of environment doesn't scale. You have a static unit of compute, and there's no elasticity when you peak workloads, et cetera. Fast forward now, we have EC2 instances, and then we've switched to containers with EKS, ECS, and now even Lambda functions, which typically spin up, run for 45 seconds for its workload, disappears, wakes up again and runs it, and you literally have no idea where any of your workloads are running. It's ephemeral, it's super efficient, cost effective, it lets you scale to meet the demands of your customers. However, observability in that sort of environment is more complex. So we at AWS, along with our partners and customers, have been innovating on how do we keep up with the ever-changing landscape and needs of our customers. And this is true whether you're on-prem, hybrid, or some sort of environment which is entirely cloud native. So today with me, I have 3 panelists. And the variety and the range of the verticals they come from, it's pretty mind-boggling. And the interesting thing is, they all have common themes on what they're trying to solve. So we have Federated Wireless in the private 5G space, which is a young company, it's a startup, born in the cloud. And then we have United Airlines from the travel industry, which is almost a 100-year-old company. And they're what they deal with observability are distinctly different, but the themes are very common. And then we have Fidelity from the financial services space, also another, I think, 75-year-old company, something like that, if Google's accurate. And so all of them have problems or some way to monitor and see what's going on and have end-to-end visibility in their workloads. And so that's what we're going to hear from each of our customers today. So let me get started and introduce our panelists. Amar, would you mind telling us a little bit? Of course, most of us, to me, I associate Fidelity with my 401k, but they do way more things than that. So Amar, go ahead.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you so much. Amar Abdelhalam. I'm part of the big Fidelity technology family. Joined Fidelity like 5 years ago. Maybe a little bit about Fidelity, and I'm sure you guys know about it, but Fidelity is a privately owned financial institution. Today we manage over $7.2 trillion of client assets, including Nandini's 401k plan. So if you guys have any 401k plan issues, you can come to me after the call. We also trade at least 1.3 million trades per day. So that's the scale of the company. And I was lucky to join the company like 5 years ago when we are in a massive digital transformation, moving from an investment bank, an investment company with a technology arm, toward a technology FinOps company that work in investment. And that digital transformation was a massive, including modernization of all our legacy system, mainframe, including the movement to the cloud, including the AI aspect of the house, including crypto, including Bitcoin, you name it, we have it. So it's the amount of innovation And the amount of modernization that I saw in the last 5 years was amazing. My responsibilities mainly focus in building the core and common technology foundation and platform for all of our massive number of applications to move to the cloud safely. That's including infrastructure side, the movement to the public cloud with you guys in AWS, including our container technology, including our API technology, and last but not least, obviously, the observability side of the house as well.
Great. That's pretty awesome scale, so thank you for sharing. Sure. Julietta, we all know I'm a loyal United customer, so would love to hear your journey through AWS and the cloud.
Sure, we appreciate your business. Thank you, Nandini. So I know many of you know United, and we hope that many of you flew to reInvent on United Airlines. If you did, thank you very much. What you may not know is, we've gone through a couple of mergers, we've done some acquisitions. As Nandini said, we're almost 100 years old in a couple of years. And so what we have kind of behind the scenes is many monolithic systems. We have some mainframes, some ton of legacy applications, and that's sort of like the legacy side of the house. And the other things that we are now modernizing, partnering with AWS, is leveraging all the benefits of the public cloud. And so being in a hybrid solution for the next couple of years really brings a focus on observability. I would say reliability and resiliency has always been sort of at the core of United Airlines in the digital technology department, but now with the complexities that we have on an infrastructure and a hybrid model, coupled with our operation and things like weather delays that we can't control or global pandemics that we can't control, observability is just critical for our future. And so we are partnering with AWS in a number of different ways to focus on observability.
Great. And now let's turn it to Sepper. This is a very fascinating space. The more I learn about private 5G, I'm very fascinated. So maybe you could help our audience understand what Federated does and your role.
Thank you, Nandini. It's a pleasure to be on this panel talking about sharing our experience on observability, because it's a dear topic to us at Federated. I'm one of the privileged guys to be there from the very start. And as you mentioned, unlike my esteemed colleagues over here, we're privileged to be a born-in-the-cloud startup. So observability to us was always a day one problem statement, a day one approach in our architecture. But before we get to share our journey in observability, let me double-click on what Federated does.
Yep, I would.
Okay.
I'm sure the audience would love that.
So Federated offers a turnkey private wireless solution for our enterprise customers that's available through AWS Marketplace. Mm-hmm. At the heart of this offering, there's a spectrum controller. And that spectrum controller not only used by our private wireless as a service toward our enterprise customer, but is also used by our communication service provider customers. Mm-hmm. The spectrum controller is a cloud-native microservices architecture that implements spectrum access system management for CBRS shared spectrum. We manage hundreds of thousands of devices for our customers in this band. Another 5 seconds on what CBRS and shared spectrum is all about. So there's a paradigm shift in terms of the cost of spectrum, right? You have the licensed spectrum, which is a licensed band, utilized by your service providers like Verizon and AT&Ts of the world, and that spectrum is quite expensive, billions of dollars. It has a very high fidelity, but is only available to the licensee. Yeah. There is, on the other hand, very low cost, almost free, shared spectrum, which is utilized by Wi-Fi, and lower fidelity. Obviously, Wi-Fi is great. We all love Wi-Fi. We use it everywhere, but Wi-Fi is also, quite deployed and is difficult to control it. So it's a lower fidelity, but very free. The shared spectrum is in between. So you have an incumbent that is willing to share its license with others that wants to use the spectrum. In this case, the CBRS is a citizen broadcast radio service, which is a mid-band spectrum at 3.5 gigahertz, about 150 megahertz. This spectrum is optimal for 4G, 5G type deployments. And so Federated Spectrum Controller manages assignments of that spectrum to customers that we have. Given that it's a shared tiered paradigm, it's actually quite challenging because we have an incumbent that requires a high reliability. In this case, our incumbent is DoD, Navy, and fixed satellite systems. And our customers are CSPs that require a high availability. And it's a constant balance between reliability and high availability that provides lots of operational challenges that we have to solve.
While ensuring that the incumbent always has first access to.
Correct. So our spectrum controller has to ensure that the incumbent operation is unencumbered. And in this case, the incumbent happens to be, U.S. Navy. And what they use this band is for the naval radars, and where they use the fighter jets actually landing on the carrier, Navy carrier deck. So you can see if you interfere with that operation, that quickly becomes a national security issue, right? So the reliability of our solution, in at the same time, availability that we need to provide to the service providers, such that my colleagues here will be able to use that service to be able to run their operations, right? It requires a pretty high availability. And that availability, which is a contractual SLAs that Federated signs up for, is 5 nines. And 5 nines means 5 minutes and 15 seconds annually. That's all the downtime that we can be. So you can already anticipate the operational challenges that we have to solve. And obviously, we rely heavily on the partnership with AWS to solve these solutions.
Thanks, Effer. That's almost like something from The Matrix, honestly, when I heard about fighter jets landing on Navy ships and things like that. So anyway, it was super fascinating. And also, 5 nines availability, that is like 5 minutes and whatever seconds in a whole year. That's a huge SLA right there. So very curious to learn more about how you actually manage to provide that for your end customers. So let's get started. So I'd like to start with a theme of what are some of the operational challenges? Because we've heard from different customers with different needs. I haven't heard the word mainframe in I think a long, long time. So I'm really curious how you get started. So Julieta, why don't you kick us off? Given you said you grew through acquisitions, I'm only familiar with one of your acquisitions, but sounds like there were many. How do you handle, and you have human capital as well, right? Like it's a dual business. I just look at my app, but you have a whole machinery on the other end. So tell us about some of the challenges you face.
Sure, absolutely. So I think, other thing that makes us a little bit unique is we have a giant, when you're talking about the human workforce, our internal employees that make our airline run, it's a rather large workforce, and lots of complexity within just that half of running the operation, right? Whether it's at the airport operations, flight crew, in-flight, et cetera. And so ensuring that they are running a highly reliable operation is critical for the airline, so that on the other side of the house, our customers experience a very seamless experience. That, coupled with, we run a global operation, we deal with things like airport authorities and their own transformation and changes there, really kind of make our operation complex. There's, many different components. I know you kind of joked about mainframes. We still deal with those mainframes very often. And now that our partnering with our application teams that are now taking those mainframes, transforming those applications into the cloud, and quite frankly, moving, and Nandini, you kind of mentioned this earlier too, working in a hybrid model, moving those things from applications to many, many services in the cloud, just makes reliability a little bit more difficult. with observability, that's where we are really trying to focus on, what are the business characteristics of, users, customers, on how they're using our applications, and leveraging those business characteristics to then make decisions based on that data on, predictive analytics, using that data to provide customized offerings to our customers. And so there, lots of complexity. And with the focus on data and observability, that's really how we are trying to take it up to the next level at United.
That's fascinating. So, Amar, the financial industry, and this is not holistically true, but they tend to be slow adopters of public cloud and other technologies. So I'm curious, how was Fidelity's journey through migrating to the cloud and leveraging all the tools and services that we offer?
It used to be slow adopter. I would say, from challenge perspective, there's two dimensions for that. I mean, we live in different world right now. Pandemics, market volatility, everything.
Sorry, 1 second. Can everyone hear Amar? Is it just my ears? Okay.
Awesome, okay.
Sorry.
So between pandemics and market volatilities, meme stocks, so you find challenges every day in that field, which require a massive scale, and that scale can only be achievable if you are in the elastic environment like a cloud. So that from the business perspective, where you need to be alerted, you need to be able to scale very fast to accommodate this market events. That's one aspect of it. But the second aspect is the modernization, when you have to modernize all your application and move them toward public cloud and move them this legacy application. The term we use is usually, for all the technology teams here, refactor. Refactor this system and this legacy modular and mainframe technology toward the microservice architecture that will live for a while, in a hybrid model between our data centers and between the public cloud side of the house. And that make the observability itself more complex, because you can't rely on traditional classical monitoring tools, tools that will alert you when issues happen in your legacy application. You have to start looking in different aspects. You have to start looking about mesh and end-to-end view and be able to see the whole holistic, view for this application. That part of it live in the cloud, the other part is still in data centers, and how they are connected with that. The third part of the equation itself, that when you live in that microservice architecture side, you have to start this service needs to start to communicate. You start to need to be able to update each other or let each other know about the challenges that you're facing right in the background. So service A might be able to tell service B, I need to scale because I'm having, challenges in the background or in the back end, for example, and so on. So we're changing from day one, which is traditional monitoring, to day two, where you can see the end-to-end, and that's where we are right now, to day three, where you can start building this communication between all the systems itself.
Go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to tag on to that too.
Sure.
I think for us, one of the biggest things, you were mentioning this, it was around event correlation. And although I would say we had some of that for kind of more traditional years ago kind of thing, I think now it's even more critical that we can get those ties together. And in our environment, there's even days, we've been challenged around dependencies and what are the dependencies in applications forever, right? But now those things are so dynamic with the flexibility that we get with AWS that those are ever changing. And so now event correlation is key, and that is something that we are continuing to try to make better and better as we go down this journey.
And it's so true, because the tooling for your legacy monoliths are very distinctly different, and you would like a single pane view, and it's very complicated. So Sefer, so we heard from customers who have the duality of the legacy and the newer microservice applications. So your Federated has been around for 10 years. However, in the last 10 years, I would argue, we've seen enormous growth in just the number of services that AWS alone is launching. So there's been transformation even within the cloud for a company that was born in the cloud. So tell us how your journey has been over the past decade.
So Great question. I mean, we do share some of these similar experiences. I mean, I recall in the old days when I used to write code, and I'm dating myself, but when there was an issue, we would run to the data center and we'll put ice on the processor, and we were just looking at the logic analyzer. Oh, okay, here it is, right? So it's not about so having that experience, having that dealing with those issues, and the fortunate being a startup and starting on a new service, new type of service, we were able to take that experience and say, okay, observability is the day one design. And I keep repeating this in this theme, day one, right? Look at it and say, okay, what are the things that we need to do to make sure that the design is instrumented properly? We can look at SLAs and SLOs given our reliabilities and availability requirements. We can put monitoring in place, but monitoring is not going to be adequate because monitoring is just going to predict and monitor for the known failures. We need to make sure that we can deal with unforeseen failures. And for that, we need to put the right breadcrumbs, that we can trace back to, okay, what was the cause of the issue? And keep learning from that, and then keep adapting our service level indicators to say, okay, here's where we missed. We need to add and keep iterating and keep updating what we have in the production.
That's fascinating. I've never heard, actually, that resonates with me. Monitoring is when you already known parameters and you're monitoring for those type of failures, versus observability is broader, where you are bracing yourself for the unknowns of things. So really like that framing. And then let me ask you, so I know you leverage AWS. So let me start with you, Amar. What kind of services are you using, and how do running your operations on AWS help you, particularly from a lens of observability, to give you that end-to-end visibility?
Sure. Let me go back in time a little bit. Like in 2019, we had a major shift in the company. It was announced in KubeCon at the time, moving toward a CNCF and open source technology. So today, the majority of our application running in the cloud is running using an open source technology. We have a massive implementation of Kubernetes running our application workload. We're also hosting our API platform in Envoy, which is another open source technology, running 2 billion API calls per day, over almost 250,000 container running production. And the third project in CNCF, which is a project I'm really interested in right now, and I'm partnering with you guys about it, is the Open Telemetry project. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing the observability. I think we're shifting right now from observability tools to a platform, and looking to observability itself as a data platform, operational data and operational analytical platform. And our challenge today in the company is the data quality and data quantity as well. And I think building that open telemetry pipeline or highways that will be able to provide our DevOps team and our SRE communities the ability to have control planes. We have control planes today for our application run, for our data, for our cloud, obviously. But we don't have that for observability. Mm-hmm. So the next goal for us is definitely to build this pipeline that will be able to filter and remove all this noise. And I'm really happy, I'm partnering with AWS and with CNCF, building that pipeline.
Yeah, and last year we launched AWS distro for Open Telemetry, and we partner as well heavily with CNCF and others, along with folks in the industry, including Fidelity. Sefer, maybe given your tension between ensuring that there's no obstruction for the incumbent and also your end customers, how do you leverage some, like CloudWatch, for instance? I know you're working with the CloudWatch team.
Yeah.
Could you share some of your experiences and how you leverage?
Of course, goes without saying about CloudWatch, but let me also advertise for other services at the AWS. We rely heavily on AWS, and they're great partners. It's not all about compute and memory and network resources. We use all services that we can from AWS, including on security, CloudTrail, Cloud Guard Duty, organization, AWS orgs and everything. But we rely heavily on CloudWatch to be able to monitor and observe our service. As you mentioned, we're a small startup. So we put our emphasis in what our workload is in building our application, which requires a lot of compute. So we're able to scale the need for compute in an elastic way. We use CloudWatch, metric picks, auto scaling through CloudWatch. We use CloudWatch logs and insight to be able to understand what has occurred in the service, and not only be able to create algorithms for anomaly detection, which then again we use another service from AWS to be able to detect those anomalies, but also create traffic models. We actually do massive load testing before we deploy our service in production. We do spatial simulation. We create a real model for the traffic through what we learned from the CloudWatch logs.
CloudWatch logs, yeah. Interesting, yeah. I want to come back to the scale point, but let's hear from Juliet on how you're leveraging some of the AWS services. And this time I will ask it more broadly than CloudWatch.
Well, we do use CloudWatch. I would say another critical one is CloudTrail that identifies what some of the changes are that we're making in the cloud, and then we're working on feeding that into our data lake that'll help do the predictive analytics and the correlation that I was mentioning about earlier. Obviously we use a number of different services in AWS, but from observability, I think those two are some of the hypercritical ones for us.
Yeah. And so I have a little tidbit about scale, right? So we use CloudWatch internally for our own observability needs, both at Amazon as well as AWS. And in yesterday's session, I was talking about scale. So for me, scale is generally, I think, in gigabytes. So I'm like 1 followed by 9 zeros. I understand that. And then I come join AWS. I've been here like a year and 8 months. Not that I'm counting, but that's how long I've been here. And I can tell you, like CloudWatch supports 5 exabytes of logs per month. That's 5 followed by 18 zeros. And here's an even more interesting tidbit. I was talking to Kurt Kofeld, another colleague at AWS, and he says, that's hard for people to understand. How many dollar bills can you stack from the earth to the sun? So CloudWatch supports 9 quadrillion metric observations per month. And that is, bless you, 6.62 times round trip to the sun, not end-to-end stacking of dollar bills, but actually just stacking one on top of the other. And I learned something new from Google yesterday. The thickness of a dollar bill is 0.0042 inches. I hope I got the 2 or 3 wrong, but anyway, it's really slim, right? And that's a mind-boggling stat, and I can picture that. That sounds impressive to me, but anyway. So we have the scale to help customers such as all of you in the travel industry. So shifting gears a little bit, so we talked a little bit about the, internals of what you have to deal with behind the scenes. But ultimately, it's all about your end customers. So tell me, what is the business impact? Not just from there's 2 things, right? One is you might have an incident and an alarm goes off, and that's expensive. That's because your end customers have no access to your applications, et cetera. There's also a TCO aspect to it. How do you optimize and reduce cost? So I would love to hear, maybe Juliet, I will kick it off with you. How do you think about observability and how it helps you from, your business impact and accomplish your business objectives?
Sure. At United, your kind of journey starts, while you're looking for a ticket on, say, United.com. You purchase a ticket. There's pre-departure requirements. You check in, hopefully on the app, get to the airport operations. Then you move to in-flight. Lots of different touch points that we work with the customer. And similar to AWS's principle on customer obsession, we are very customer focused and customer first, and have made a conscious shift to that a few years ago at United Airlines to make things better. And so when you think of those different complexities and the different interactions we have, so many different interactions, and over the last 15, 20 years, we've really moved from manual processes in an airline to being very, very technology first driven. And so as we've made those shifts, as we've implemented those use cases for our customers, again, observability is table stakes now. One probably good example is during the global pandemic, as we had to sort of immediately wind down the operation and then bring it back up. One of the critical apps that I think a few of you in the room here today were responsible for was our Travel Ready Center. And if any of you used it, it was a game changer for the airline industry. And Travel Ready Center, there were so many different requirements depending on where you were flying, what state at the time, what country thereafter, and having that application built natively in AWS, having the flexibility of scaling it up when we needed it, which we very much needed it for, and leveraging things like automation and machine learning to implement some things around, when everybody was taking COVID tests for flying, you had to interact with a human being at one point to validate your results, and then we shifted that to a more automated process, which we leverage today for country requirements, say for not necessarily COVID vaccinations, but other vaccinations and that kind of thing. So those things are, the core of our airline in order to run the business. And so, partnering with AWS on observability and leveraging the data from all of those different endpoints that I just talked about to be able to even predict, what a customer is going to select, like seat selection, how many bags that we expect to have on a plane, those kind of things are all data-driven. And so one of the things that I think at United is, our observability story partners with our business partners as well. And so this isn't just like an IT thing. This is all about how, business behaviors, and our data innovation and analytics team has been doing that for a few years now, getting ahead of trying to figure out what the customer requests and needs are going to be. So it's really like across the gamut at United, not just a digital technology program, but really a partnership with the business as well.
And I know you also have to deal with not just the end application, and obviously the Travel Ready Center was super helpful, and you were able to get it up and running quickly, but I think about the logistics of an airport. I don't know how many of you are from the East Coast here or have flown to LaGuardia. LaGuardia was a bodega pretending to be an airport, and now, I don't know if you've been there, it's a massive airport and just spectacular. So those logistics of how you move people through your desks, and it was fascinating. It's something I never think about, but hearing from United, there's logistics, right?
Oh, yeah. And depending on what airport you're at, it completely changes, Airports, like you're saying, are going through their own transformation, just like we are, which is wonderful, and wonderful for us and wonderful for our customers, but does bring complexity when they're going to make change a gate that we use all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Or have us move a United club, behind or before security, right? I mean, critical things.
That all feed into user experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating. Amar, could you share some of, and for you and your investment banking and all the rest of what you do, it's also highly regulated. In this, given the confines of that, could you share some of what is the business impact of reactive versus proactively thinking about observability?
Sure. So first of all, I fly United, so I'm looking for upgrade. I think, and I agree with all of you guys. I think the line between technology and business are blurring, and and observability is part of what integrate both sides together. I'm going to give you examples, for example, our trading system. So our trading system is migrated and moved to AWS recently. And as a matter of fact, there was actually a presentation yesterday about how we moved the trade system and how we moved the fixed protocol into AWS. So just imagine the magnitude of millions of trade running in AWS, and divide that by a number of hours, a number of minutes and seconds while market is open, and imagine an outage or issues that could happen. So we actually have zero downtime during market hour. We cannot ever. And that automatically lead you to build an intelligent circuit breakers across all our multi-region that handle our trading system. That's one example for how the observability system can be very sophisticated. The other one, our trade system, for example, is running over hundreds of machines and thousands of containers. There is a need for building an observability drift report because we have to make sure that we are running within 50 milliseconds in every machine. There's no drift in there. So, and that have to be monitored all day. So that's an example for how we are, when we move to the cloud and we move into that, we have to build that sophistication in the platform itself. And how we have to build that logic inside our observability tools and observability platform to support the business use cases for trades and others.
Zephyr, you have a pretty challenging job. So and you said you already wired in observability from the start. So how is your experience versus retrofitting?
Yeah, I think similar, but slightly different because we have, a constant balance of incumbent versus other customers. So it's reliability and availability. We need to make sure that incumbents are able to operate, and we need to make sure that our customers have access to the spectrum. It's pretty stringent availability, 5.9 requirements. And we own, we heavily, as I said, we rely on AWS solution, but we own the solution, so we need to make sure that we use the AWS building blocks in a correct way. So our solution spans across the cloud continuum, right? We're deployed multi-zone, multi-region, all the way to the edge, and we use all the tools from AWS, including heavily relying on CloudWatch. The business impact is, very simple. If we're not able to maintain the spectrum, the CSP would lose the device and the connection. And then when you look at it as subscribers that are using that service, the tablets, the cell phones, and everybody in this room, and they will stop having service. And that becomes quite noticeable real quickly. So that's the business impact.
Yep, makes sense. And one other thing, shifting gears a little bit. So obviously there's tooling, there's how you actually create your architecture, do your setup. There's more than just observability, right? There's a whole setup phase where I heard you say you use control tower, config, et cetera, guard duty. And then you set up your operations, and then you observe and validate. But one thing that I've discovered, you also need a culture of observability first and operating in the cloud, and a culture of operational and security excellence. And that is one of the hardest things to do. And at AWS, as I don't know how many of you know this, but we have a concept where the development teams are the ones who are on call. The other ones who actually have it in their DNA to constantly think about how their systems are operating. In fact, yesterday was Cyber Monday, largest shopping day for Amazon retail. And all of my teams were poring over dashboards, like ensuring that our applications are running well and the end user experience doesn't degrade. So I wonder for all of you, how do you change the culture and your engineering teams, whether it's IT, SRE, DevOps, whoever, how do you create that cultural transformation? You want to go?
Sure. I think one of the incentives that we've, kind of teased everybody about is, hey, if you don't want to be on a call at 2 o'clock in the morning responding to a critical incident, then, join us on this journey. And one way that we're trying to make that culture shift is by defining, a new logo that's yellow is the new red, right? One of the things that, obviously, incident avoidance is one of the critical things to a successful observability program. And to get there, we really have to do, Amr, you kind of talked about it earlier, is, think about things differently and not just, monitoring eyes on glass in a command center. We have that. That's kind of the ground layer. But, what are some of the things that we need to look at from a business perspective that'll help us, that'll help with golden signals that'll help kind of say, hey, this is kind of starting to turn bad. We should take a look at this, right? So something that, we maybe have traditionally have waited to become red, and then it hits off in an incident, and then there's impact. Focus on what those yellow signals are that we're seeing, whether it's in our monitoring tools, whether it's in CloudWatch, other tools that we leverage, to say, okay, this looks like it's starting to fail. Let's go, get the team to address those kind of things now versus waiting for that impact as well. And so there's the yellow is the new red concept that we're, trying to make a culture shift to. And then there's, as I mentioned earlier, the partnership with the business and what it means to them, and have them sort of on our journey with us as we look to improve, customer, very specific customer-focused areas as well.
Amar, what about you in your journey? What are some of how did you change the culture in Fidelity? While you said since 2019 you've been on this transformation.
Right, and there's multiple aspects for that. I think one of them is around collaboration. And we have this concept or principle in Fidelity called the neighborhood. So we have actually a neighborhood for cloud, neighborhood for API, for data, for security. And we have a neighborhood around resiliency and stability and observability. Have few folks here in that neighborhood. So we meet every week, all the leads that they care about that topic, and they try to innovate and try to find common ground and future and view for that area or that neighborhood and how they can move there. That's part of it. The other part is definitely we have our technology worker groups that happen on a weekly basis, and it shows demos and collaboration between all our business partners around that. The second aspect beside the collaboration is the educational side. So that's across all of Fidelity 15,000 developers. We have an education day every week. Mm-hmm. So every week, Tuesday is our educational day. And that educational day basically is a day that developers, management, myself, we go and we start our research. And part of that is definitely training and classes around the new technologies, observability technologies. You guys are part of that as well, where you come and through the dental educational program with AWS, we go through that as well. But I think more important than all of that is definitely building the observability culture inside the development community. We're ahead in terms of building the governance part as a code, I would say. We have our own governance gate or our governance as a code culture inside the company. We have our policy as a code inside the company right now, especially with Kubernetes and OPA. We're very active in that, very advanced in this. I think the next step is definitely start thinking about observability and financial, FinOps as well. So our full stack developer is not only about coding and data, but it's code and data and security and observability and FinOps and resiliency as well. That will be part of it itself.
And Sefer, for you, you're obviously born in the cloud, so was the culture already existent? Because I think culture is fluid, right? You've got to keep at it. And also, speaking of education, we are launching new things all the time, so you need to educate as well. So could you share some of?
So again, we're lucky because we were born in cloud, but we're a startup. So we all learn from past sins. So we put the DNA in place that we're a data-driven company, and that we can observe performance, not just on operational aspects, but on all aspects of our business. Mm-hmm. Is it sales? Is it engineering? Is it scheduled deliverables? Is it our service, right? So we built that into overall thinking set and the DNA of all of our employees, not just engineering. Mm-hmm. And understand very similar to AWS. We also very focused on the customer. We're customer obsessed, and we're also efficiency obsessed, right? So all those require ability to have metrics in place to be able to monitor and observe and be able to predict. So So given that DNA, it's simple for us to then build it to any new service that we think of, that, okay, what are the SLAs? What are the customer's behavior? Do we really understand the use case? What are the SLAs or SLEs we need to put in place, right? Okay, are we able to achieve these, objectives? And what is the constant iteration of,
Getting better.
learn and improve, learn and improve.
Fascinating. And speaking of education and tools, we are here to help. I know we partner with all of our customers, and any of you have not just my observability services, but broadly, we have teams that are eager to help service teams, so you should engage. Now, one question, you've all been on this journey. What are some of the lessons learned and things that you would do differently from, your learn and iterate? What are some for you, Julietta? What would be some things you feel like we could have done this differently?
Sure. I do want to give a plug to your team, though, too, just to your point on helping us. We, one of the things that we started with was like an observability starter kit. Like, what does that mean for United, and how does that get defined? That was with a lot of help from Nandini's team, but it gives some, observability is a broad term, and what does that actually mean? And so we, took a stab at identifying that and what that starter kit kind of means for everybody in digital technology. So thank you for that. To your question on what we learned, I think a couple of things. So we were sort of in firefighting mode for a while with observability, right? We would have a critical incident, and then we would, put a team on. Okay, here's a SWAT team that's going to go address that and make observability better. And it got a lot of good things came out of that. And an example would be the confirmation numbers that you guys use to fly. There's some magic behind that, and we had a critical incident where that wasn't working as designed. And so we did put a team against that and came up with a dashboard that actually helped from an observability perspective avoid incidents in the future. So although small, was successful. So we do have a couple of good examples of that, but I think now with our fearless leader, Jason, I think he might be in the audience, said, okay, but now we got to go big, right? Those are good stories, those are good enhancements, but now we really need to take it like to an ecosystem. We really need to take it to where it's really going to kind of make a difference for our customer. And so we moved from small to ecosystems, which has really helped us to advance. So I think go big or go home is kind of one thing there. And then the second thing is data. Our analytics and innovation team, they've been focused on data for a long time from a customer perspective. And so now we've really made a shift to say IT for IT and have that team help us focus on making IT better. And so we really weren't ingesting enough data to make a difference to glean those insights that we really wanted to find. And so we made a shift there to say, okay, give us many different ingestion points, and then we're going to leverage our data analytics and innovation team to help us glean those insights from that data. So I think the second one's really focused on like don't hesitate on ingesting something. I think we were kind of having a conversation earlier where, okay, that gets crazy too, there's noise. There's a balance there, right? So there's a balance with ingesting enough data to glean those insights and to glean those predictive things that can avoid incidents with a balance against event correlation and noise.
That's cool. Is your experience similar, Amar?
It does, absolutely. And I think it's, if one of the things that I learned definitely is collaboration. The pillars are like, architecture, engineering, application development, like, SRE, security, all the pillars have to be collaboration and have to work together. This is actually what makes that platform powerful. That's why we have over like within 3 years, we moved 5,700 applications to the cloud. The only way we did that is by building this collaboration culture. One thing I also want to, I was very, I highlighted the open source program, but we have a strong inner source program as well. I think building and governing an inner source program and building that collaboration between our business units and our development community did definitely help and build this collaboration between teams.
And do you feel, Julietta mentioned that she wished she had actually had access to more data than less. So there's a balance. Have you seen the same thing?
Actually, I think we have the opposite problem. So we have more data than we need. So we have to clear the noise on us. So I do think actually we have, I think the whole refactoring modeling does produce more operational data than needed. So we have to go through, that's why I think building that observability pipeline where you be able to stream this data, where you be able to filter this data toward like a premium control plane via community control planes, be able to remove that noise out of this operational data. You'll be able to utilize the data better. You'll be able to get the MTTR down. You'll be able to start building this predictive measurement, and you'll be able to get like better, anomaly control and detection after that.
What about you, Seppo?
I mean, again, the fortunate part of startup is that you have opportunity to learn a lot.
No kidding.
So we're fortunate in that sense. But, we have a lot of data also, right? Our solution space gives us opportunity to collect a lot of data and constantly, churn on that data to learn. But I guess maybe I talk about the desired end state, right? We're trying to, we would like to, the vision is to get to a fully autonomous operation. What does that mean? That means, through automation, through ability to, create, operate, and correct, and constantly through automation, rejuvenate the service. We have, with the fully automated CI/CD pipeline that we have in place, we can correct for issues, without using, blue-green type approach, without bringing the service down, immediately upgrade the service and learn and update and move forward. So putting the right, as I said, the right breadcrumbs, right data to look at, to decipher what's wrong, what you need to do to make sure the service gets enhanced. That's really what we're focused on, and the learning that we keep applying.
It's fascinating because I heard one person say we had not enough data, and Amar says we had too much data, so can't wade through it. It's an interesting problem and a fine balance. So if you ask me, I think we are all marching toward, in the limit tending to infinity, towards self-healing, self-remediating, using ML and AI and predictive analytics and et cetera. So instead of waking up to a 2 a.m. page and having to be caffeinated, you can sip your coffee in the morning and actually be aware of an incident that occurred and self-heal. That's the journey we're all on toward. So I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on where you think this observability journey should be going. We would love to learn and be a part of it. So I would love any closing thoughts from any of you.
Sure. Look, I think I think like you're saying, it is a journey, right? It's not going to happen overnight. It certainly isn't. It's definitely something that takes a little bit of time. Amar, I like your point on collaboration. That's something at United too, that if we didn't have the collaboration across multiple teams, whether you're in traditional IT, application, data analytics, like that is, we have to have that partnership to continue going. So I think it's a journey that we're all very excited. Your point on leveraging ML and AI is something that we're focused on as well to make things better. But I think that the short of it is there's some good quick things that you can hit to kind of make things better, and then there's going to be things that'll take a little bit of time. But I think we'll all get there, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
Anything to add? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to recognize. I mean, I do keep saying that observability is a day one approach, but it's not. It doesn't end day one, right? It's a continuous journey. You have to constantly, make sure that you're on the right path. You're looking at the right data, and the data that you're collecting is the right data. So it's actually quite of a challenging and exciting engineering problem, right? Yes, and the reward is obviously, you don't get paged at 2 o'clock in the morning. Some people actually like it, by the way, but but nevertheless, the reward is that the customer satisfaction.
Right.
We measure our success through the customer satisfaction, and that indicates that, okay, you are doing the right thing, and then you keep learning, you keep adding, and you keep, never stop. It's a journey.
That's great. So as a wrap up, I do want to thank all of you for attending. And I want to say, first of all, thank my panelists for sharing their insights. And that we have so many launches, so many exciting breakout sessions, chalk talks, et cetera. Also, please visit aws.amazon.com CloudOps. CloudOps is the key on the URL, and you can get a lot of information on launches and things you've heard today. Also, we have power hours at the observability kiosk in the expo hall. And on Wednesday from 1 to 2, we're talking about application performance monitoring. And on Thursday, we have 2 sessions, 10 to 11 on CloudWatch, and a second one, 1 to 2 on CloudWatch as well. So all your questions will be answered by way smarter people than myself. Thank you again for being here and being partners with us on this journey as we solve observability for our joint customers. Thank you again.